Tony Jones coming at you for thehardestquestion.org. And this week, responding to Russell Rathbun's cleverly written, as usual, post, Out of Nowhere for Year A Epiphany 3. I think it's, I happen to be of Russell's same vintage and probably same musical background for the most part, so I fully appreciate his reference to Jethro Tull. And if you want to see that, make sure you read that post called Out of Nowhere at thehardestquestion.org. His hardest question is, why is it so important to Matthew that the lands of Zebulun and Naphtali are mentioned in this kind of opening salvo of Jesus beginning his public ministry, and Matthew saying that it's just so important that, or implying that it's so important that Jesus begins his ministry there. Well, I mean, Matthew tells us why, and that's leads me to my hardest question for the text this week, and it seems to me a particularly pertinent question as we go throughout the Gospel of Matthew. Here we are in year A, and Matthew tells us why he thinks Jesus beginning in Zebulun and Naphtali is so important, and that's because Jesus had to fulfill an ancient prophecy. And then Matthew quotes it, land of Zebulun, land of Naphtali, on the road by the sea, across the Jordan, etc., from Isaiah. So my question is this: I remember vividly when I was an adolescent and I was going to church, and there was a lot of talk that from youth pastor type people and young life type people and the kind of youth groupy things that I hung out in when I was in junior high and high school, there was a lot of talk about Jesus was verified as divine, as, super duper special, because he fulfilled Old Testament prophecies. And that seemed to be a huge validation of Jesus' divinity, of Jesus' messiahship, and things of that nature. And I guess it just rarely occurs to me anymore that because a New Testament writer says Jesus directly did what an Old Testament writer said he was going to do, that somehow verifies Jesus' true credentials as Son of God or something. So it puts me off a little bit when Matthew writes, so he did this, he went to the territory of Zebulun and Naphtali so that what had been spoken through the prophet Isaiah might be fulfilled. And so my hardest question for those of us who are preaching this text this week is, do we still think that it's super important that Matthew places Jesus in a particular locale for a moment in time so that Matthew can then say this was so that something that the prophet Isaiah had said centuries earlier could be fulfilled? And then you read the passage from Isaiah, and it's like, well, that doesn't really seem like a prophecy that was exactly fulfilled, because Jesus started his ministry in Zebulun and Naphtali, in the land of those two Israelite tribes. So it just seems odd to me, and I wonder if a lot of us really put a lot of weight on that literary device that Matthew uses, that, as Russell mentions in his post, isn't mentioned in the other three Gospels. Matthew seems to think it's real important, at least for his readership, that we know where Jesus was and that he links it to a statement from Isaiah. So that's it. That's my hardest question for this week at thehardestquestion.org. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for engaging with us on the blog.